A group of rich kids sneer, mocking a little blonde girl with a prosthetic leg who sits quietly reading in the corner of Brookstone Academy's courtyard. "Look, the one-legged princess," one of them jeers. Before she can retreat, a poor boy in a worn sweater steps forward. "Leave her alone," he says firmly. The bullies scoff, but he doesn't back down. Neither of them knew it yet, but what happens next will change their lives forever. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. It was one of those mornings that felt too perfect to question. The kind where sunlight draped across the courtyard at Brookstone Academy like it was meant to be there, steady, clean and safe. The red brick walls gleamed. The trimmed hedges stood at attention. Everything looked polished, rehearsed and proper. A picture of order. But sometimes, perfection hides the quietest cruelties. Lila Monroe sat alone on a bench beneath the covered walkway, a small figure with a book open in her lap. Her eyes moved, but she wasn't reading. She was surviving, the way children learn to, when silence becomes their armor. Laughter arrived first, too loud for the distance, bright the way a knife can be bright. "Look who's sitting all by herself." Madison Pierce let the line carry, head tipped, ponytail perfect. Her trio moved with her like a thought finishing itself. Polished sneakers, pressed collars, that unstudied confidence of kids born inside the walls everyone else is trying to climb. "The one-legged princess," Madison sang, a smile that meant nothing and everything. "My mom says your dad doesn't even come to school events. That's so sad. Rich, but nobody wants you." Each sentence dropped into Lila's chest and stayed. She tightened her grip until the edges of the paperback cut into her thumb. "Don't react, don't cry." In her head, Victoria's voice arrived like a door closing. "Weakness invites consequences." "She can't even play tag," one of the girls offered, delighted with herself. "That fake leg would probably fall off." "Careful," Madison added, performing concern. "She might tell her aunt on us." "Oh wait, her aunt's the one who says she needs to toughen up." The laughter that followed was effortless, a well-worn routine. Lila drew a small breath through her nose, the kind meant to make you less visible. The socket of the prosthetic pressed wrong again, an ache she knew how to file away. This other pain had no drawer. It sat beneath the ribs and waited. "That's not nice." The new voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Lila looked up. A boy stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, uniform a little wrinkled, the rubber at his sneaker toes scuffed to gray. She'd seen him in hallways and at the far edge of assemblies. Noah Carter, one of the scholarship kids. He wasn't tall, he didn't posture. He just stood there like the ground belonged to him too. "She's just sitting here reading," he said. "Leave her alone." For a beat, the courtyard seemed to hold still, as if the day hadn't decided what to do with that sentence. Madison's smile thinned. "Oh look, the charity case talks. Does your mom clean our houses or something?" Noah didn't look at the girls. He kept his eyes on Lila like she was the only person who mattered. "My mom works at the hospital, she helps people." He turned to Madison then, almost curious. "What does yours do besides have lunch and gossip?" The air sharpened. A basketball stopped bouncing somewhere. Heads turned the way birds turn, quick, identical. "You don't talk to me like that," Madison snapped, color rising high on her cheeks. "Do you know who my father is?" "Doesn't matter," Noah said. "Being mean is being mean." The line didn't echo. It settled, heavy, quiet, exact, like dust after something breaks. Lila felt the smallest shift under her breastbone, a loosening she didn't trust. "That's enough." The hall monitor's voice cut through from the walkway. Mrs. Emily had the kind of face that said she had seen absolutely everything and would prefer not to see any more. "Noah." "Madison, principal's office, now." Madison's eyes glossed on command. She started it. She was. "I don't want to hear it," Mrs. Emily said without looking at her. "Both of you." When they were gone, the noise of recess crept back in, shoes squeaking, laughter returning, the sound of normal. But to Lila, nothing felt normal anymore. Someone had stood up for her. Not because they pitied her, not because they wanted attention, but because it was right. "Leave her alone," those 3 words replayed in her mind, warm and steady. When the bell rang, she closed her book and stood slowly. The prosthetic pressed against her leg in the wrong place again, sharp and unforgiving. But for the first time she barely noticed. Her thoughts were still wrapped around that voice, calm, firm, and impossibly kind. She's just sitting here reading. It wasn't just a defense, it was permission, to exist, to be seen, to stop apologizing for being different. And while most would forget what happened that morning, Lila wouldn't, because that was the moment two children from different worlds crossed paths, not knowing that one small act of courage would change her life forever. The city blurred past the car window as Mr. Marcus, the family driver, navigated afternoon traffic. Lila pressed her forehead to the glass, replaying the courtyard scene. She'd wanted to say thank you, but the words had stuck behind her ribs, and then the teacher was there, and he was gone. By the time the car rolled through the gates of the Monroe estate, the moment felt almost like a dream. That evening she sat at the dinner table, her prosthetic hidden beneath a carefully pressed uniform skirt. Already she'd mastered the art of stillness. Movement drew attention, attention led to correction. Shoulders back, Lila. Victoria Hale's voice carried warmth that never quite reached her eyes. You represent this family. Posture matters. Lila straightened automatically, though the adjustment pulled at scar tissue. She'd stopped mentioning the pain months ago. Victoria called it adaptation discomfort, something to overcome through discipline. Jonathan Monroe barely glanced up from his tablet, scrolling through reports for his commercial real estate empire. When he did look at his daughter, something flickered in his expression, regret maybe, or exhaustion. He'd been looking tired ever since Eleanor died, Lila's mother. The woman whose photographs had gradually disappeared from the house until only one remained, tucked in Lila's bedside drawer. Eleanor with her wild curls and paint-stained fingers, laughing at something beyond the camera's frame. Your mother loved you very much, Victoria had said during one of their afternoon sessions. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes we need structure. These things keep us safe. Safe from what? Lila wondered, but never asked. The accident had happened 2 years ago, when Lila was 6. She remembered fragments, her mother's laughter as they drove to the art supply store, sudden screaming metal, then nothing until she woke in a hospital bed, with half her right leg gone, and Victoria's face hovering where her mother's should have been. Your father needs help, Victoria had explained, moving into the house within weeks of Eleanor's death. He's drowning in grief, sweetheart. We have to be strong for him. So Lila had tried to be strong. She'd endured the surgeries, the physical therapy where Victoria watched with eagle eyes. She'd learned to walk again on the prosthetic Victoria had specially ordered. Your aunt knows best, Jonathan had murmured, when Lila tried to tell him it hurt. She's a doctor, princess. Trust her process. That phrase had become a mantra in the Monroe household. Trust the process. Trust Victoria. The next day, the rain had thinned to a mist that clung to Brookstone Academy's windows like breath on glass. Lila escaped to the library at lunch. The quiet there felt safe. Books didn't stare, didn't judge, didn't mock. Silence never demanded explanations. Mrs. Henderson, the librarian, simply nodded when Lila slipped through the door, understanding without needing words that some children needed sanctuary more than social interaction. Lila settled into the window seat, her usual spot, worn smooth by countless lunch periods spent alone. She opened a book at random, tracing words on a page she wasn't really reading. The ache in her leg was dull today, manageable if she didn't move too much. But the ache in her chest hadn't faded at all. It had grown actually, fed by gratitude she couldn't express, and questions she didn't know how to ask. You always read during lunch. The voice made her look up sharply, and there he was. Noah Carter stood a few feet away, backpack slung over one shoulder, his sweater still a little rumpled, sneakers still showing signs of yesterday's puddles, but his eyes were steady, warm in a way she hadn't realized people's eyes could be. No pity in them, no calculation, just simple honest interest. Usually, Lila managed, her voice coming out softer than she'd intended. Noah nodded toward her book with a small smile. That one's good. She sails across an ocean, makes it 2. you just spoiled the ending. You looked like someone who could use a happy one, he said simply, as if that explained everything. Lila blinked, completely unsure what to say to that. No one had ever looked at her and decided what she needed was a happy ending. Victoria looked at her and saw weakness to correct. Her father looked at her and saw guilt he couldn't bear to face. Teachers looked at her and saw a problem requiring accommodation, but Noah looked at her and saw someone who deserved good things. Silence settled between them, light, not heavy. Rain whispered against the library windows. Somewhere in the stacks, Mrs. Henderson was reshelving books with quiet efficiency. The world continued turning, but in this small pocket of space, time felt suspended. Finally, Lila found her voice. I didn't get to say it yesterday. Thank you for what you did. You don't have to thank me, Noah said, settling onto the window seat with easy comfort, leaving enough space that she didn't feel crowded. They were wrong, someone needed to say it. Still, you got in trouble because of me. My mom wasn't even mad, she said sometimes, standing up for what's right costs something, and if it didn't, everyone would do it. Noah's grin was crooked, slightly embarrassed, but not ashamed. Your mom sounds nice. She's pretty great, works too hard, but great. He studied Lila for a moment with that direct, uncomplicated honesty. Noah's smile softened, losing its challenge, becoming something warmer. I'm Noah, by the way. Noah Carter, though I guess you probably figured that out. Lila, she said, her voice almost shy. Lila Monroe, yeah, he said with a small grin. I figured, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lila smiled too, small, cautious, fragile as new glass, but real, completely honestly real. They sat in comfortable quiet for a few minutes, just existing in the same space without demands or expectations. Noah pulled a sandwich from his backpack, slightly squashed, wrapped in plastic wrap that had seen better days, and offered her half without asking if she wanted it. Lila shook her head, but the gesture itself felt like warmth spreading through her chest. The bell rang then, sharp and commanding, scattering the quiet they'd built. Students would flood the library any moment, retrieving backpacks and heading to afternoon classes. The sanctuary would become ordinary space again, full and loud and demanding. Noah stood, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. He looked at Lila for a moment, something passing between them that felt like understanding, like the beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. See you around, Lila Monroe, he said lightly, but his eyes were serious, like the words were actually a promise. See you around, she echoed, watching him go. She stayed in the window seat a moment longer, holding on to the warmth of the conversation, the strange comfort of being seen without being judged. Noah Carter had stood up for her, gotten in trouble for her, and still wanted to sit and talk like she was worth knowing. Like her company was something valuable, rather than something to be endured or corrected. The feeling stayed with her through the afternoon, through art class where she actually painted a face this time, tentative but present. Through math where numbers suddenly made sense in ways they hadn't before. Through the final bell and the ride home, where even Mr. Marcus noticed something different. Good day at school, Miss Lila, he asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Yeah, Lila said, surprised to realize it was true. Actually, yeah, it was good. And for once when the gates of the Monroe estate swung open and the cold beautiful house appeared before her, Lila didn't feel quite so small, because somewhere in the city, there was a boy named Noah Carter who'd looked at her and seen someone worth defending, someone worth knowing, someone who maybe, possibly, could be a friend. The thought was fragile, dangerous in its hopefulness. Victoria would disapprove, would find reasons why friendship with Noah was unacceptable, unsafe, unwise, but Lila tucked the thought away carefully, protecting it, nurturing it in the quiet spaces where Victoria's voice couldn't quite reach. She had smiled today, really smiled, and that small act of rebellion, choosing joy even briefly, felt like the first step towards something she couldn't name yet, but desperately needed. Freedom, maybe, or just the memory of what it felt like to be a person instead of a project. Either way, it was a start. The house felt colder than usual when she walked in. Victoria stood in the foyer, arms crossed, face set in that expression Lila had learned to dread, disappointed but not surprised, as if Lila had merely confirmed low expectations. "Sit down." The living room furniture was the kind meant for looking at rather than using. Lila perched on the edge of a chair while Victoria remained standing, a deliberate power dynamic. "I heard something interesting today," Victoria began, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle from her blouse. "Mrs. Emily mentioned you were getting friendly with a boy at school. Noah Carter, is it?" Lila's stomach tightened. "He just helped me today." Victoria's expression didn't change. "Tell me what happened." Lila explained about the race, Madison's comments, Noah's defense. She tried to make it sound simple, uncomplicated, nothing worth attention. "And this boy, Noah Carter, you've been spending time with him." "We just met today. His mother is a nurse's aide at County Hospital," Victoria said, her tone clinical, precise. "Single-parent household, apartment in the lower 4th ward." She paused, as if reciting from a file. "You see, Lila, people like that often mean well, but they bring complications. I don't want you caught in something beneath you." Lila didn't answer. The chair's edge pressed into the back of her knees, and she kept her gaze on the perfect shine of the floor, watching the reflection of the woman who never had to sit down to feel taller than everyone else in the room. "He's nice." "Nice." Victoria repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. "Darling, you need to understand something about relationships. People attach themselves to wealth, to status. This boy sees what you represent. This house, your father's business, the opportunities we can provide. He doesn't care about that stuff. Everyone cares about that stuff." Victoria knelt down, bringing herself to Lila's eye level in a gesture that might have seemed maternal if not for the coldness in her eyes. "Your mother thought the same thing. She believed people were good, that love conquered all. Look where that faith got her." Lila felt tears prick her eyes. "What do you mean?" Victoria stood abruptly, as if she'd revealed too much. "I mean the world is harder than your mother wanted to believe. I'm trying to prepare you for it. To make you strong. But Noah, you will not associate with that boy anymore." Victoria's voice went sharp. "Is that clear?" "Dad wouldn't. Your father trusts my judgment regarding your welfare. He has enough to manage with his business. This is my domain." She moved toward the hallway, then paused. "Take off your prosthetic. I want to check the fit." Lila's breath caught. These checkups always hurt. Victoria adjusting straps and angles in ways that the prosthetist had specifically said not to do, but arguing only made things worse. She followed Victoria to the first-floor study that had been converted into what Victoria called a therapy room. Medical equipment lined one wall, examination table, various instruments, charts tracking Lila's progress that never quite seemed to show enough improvement, up on the table. Lila climbed up, the paper covering crinkling beneath her. Victoria's hands were efficient, clinical, as she removed the prosthetic and examined the residual limb. Her fingers pressed into the scar tissue, and Lila bit her lip to keep from crying out. "Still tender." Victoria made a note on her tablet. "We may need to adjust your pain medication again. Can't have you making scenes at school. It only hurts when you." Lila stopped herself, but too late. Victoria's eyes lifted slowly. "When I what?" "Nothing. No, please. Share your medical expertise. I'm always eager to learn from 8-year-olds. The sarcasm stung worse than the physical pain. Lila looked away, focusing on a watercolor painting Eleanor had done, one of the few Victoria had allowed to remain. It showed a garden full of wild flowers, chaotic and beautiful, everything growing in whatever direction it pleased. "I'm trying to help you," Victoria said, her voice softening into something almost convincing. "The world isn't kind to people with weaknesses. I'm teaching you to overcome yours. Someday you'll thank me." But Lila wondered if strength was supposed to feel like this, hollow and afraid, perfect on the outside, while something inside slowly broke. Noah started appearing in unexpected places. Lila would find him reading in the library during her sanctuary lunches, or see him across the cafeteria, always alone but never seeming lonely. He'd wave when their eyes met, casual and undemanding, as if he understood she couldn't wave back openly. 3 days after Victoria's warning, Lila found a note tucked into her math textbook, library at lunch, just to say hi. No pressure, none. She shouldn't go. Victoria had made the rules clear. But something in her chest pulled toward that possibility of simple friendship, of someone who'd stood up for her without expecting anything in return. Mrs. Henderson smiled when Lila entered the library, nodding toward the window seat where Noah sat with a worn paperback. He looked up as she approached, and his grin was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Figured you'd be here," he said, making room on the seat. "It's kind of your spot. I'm not supposed to talk to you." The words came out in a rush, a confession and apology tangled together. "Yeah, I figured that too when Morrison called both our parents." He shrugged philosophically. "My mom wasn't mad. Well, she was about the disruption part, but not about defending you. She said I should pick my battles smarter, but pick them. Victoria says you're trying to take advantage of my family's money." Noah actually laughed, the sound startling in the quiet library. "That's hilarious. My mom would kill me if I tried something like that. She's got this whole thing about integrity and self-sufficiency." He paused, studying Lila's face. "You believe that I'm using you?" "No," and she realized she meant it. Whatever Noah was, he wasn't calculating. He was just genuinely confusingly kind. "Good, because honestly I'm terrible at long-term planning. I can barely remember to pack lunch." He held up a somewhat squashed sandwich as evidence. "Want half?" They split the sandwich, and Noah told her about his mother, Martha Carter, who'd been a physical therapist before an injury forced her into less demanding work. She picked up overnight shifts at County Hospital now, cleaning and filing, making sure Noah had everything he needed, even when money was tight. "She's basically a superhero," Noah said with unmistakable pride. "Works all night, comes home and makes me breakfast, helps with homework, never complains. She sounds amazing." "She is." He studied Lila for a moment. "What about your family, besides the scary aunt? I mean," Lila hesitated, unsure how to explain the hollow spaces in the Monroe house. "My dad works a lot. My mom died when I was 4. Victoria moved in to help." "I'm sorry about your mom." The simple sympathy nearly undid her. Most people either avoided mentioning Eleanor entirely, or offered elaborate condolences that felt rehearsed. Noah just acknowledged the loss, sitting with it comfortably. "What was she like?" he asked. No one ever asked that. It was as if Eleanor had become a forbidden subject, something to move past rather than remember. Lila felt words rising that she hadn't known she still had. "She laughed a lot, painted these huge messy canvases in the garage. She'd get paint everywhere, in her hair, on her clothes, sometimes on me." Lila smiled at the memory. "Victoria says she wasn't practical, but she made things feel possible, you know, like the world was bigger than rules." "She sounds cool." "She was." Lila's smile faded. "Sometimes I think I'm forgetting her, like she's fading out, and soon there won't be anything left except what other people tell me she was." "That's not how memory works." Noah spoke with unexpected authority. "My dad died when I was 3. I barely remember him. But my mom tells me stories, and those stories make him real." "Maybe you need someone to tell you stories about your mom." "Who would do that?" "Victoria just gets upset. Dad won't talk about her." "Then maybe you need to find things yourself, letters, pictures, stuff like that." "Your mom left more than memories. She left evidence she existed." The idea planted itself in Lila's mind, taking root. Evidence. Proof of who Eleanor had been beyond Victoria's careful narrative. Their lunch period became routine. Noah never pushed, never demanded more time than Lila felt safe giving. He'd share his sandwich, they'd talk about books or nothing, and then they'd separate before the hallways filled with students who might report back to Victoria. But routines have a way of becoming visible. It was Madison Pierce who finally noticed, cornering Lila outside the girls' bathroom 2 weeks into their secret friendship. "You and the charity case are pretty cozy." Madison's voice dripped false sweetness. "Does your aunt know you're slumming?" "We're just friends." "Right, because you have so many of those." Madison examined her perfect manicure. "My mom's on the hospital board with your aunt. They have lunch every Thursday. I wonder what Victoria would think about you ignoring her rules. The threat hung in the air between them, sharp and clear. Lila felt her chest tighten. She could deny it, could promise to stop seeing Noah, could do what was safe and expected. Instead, surprising herself, she said, I wonder what your mom would think about you bullying someone with a disability. Pretty sure that's against the school's zero-tolerance policy. Madison's face went pale, then flushed angry red. You wouldn't dare try me. They stared at each other for a long moment before Madison spun away, muttering something about freaks sticking together. But she didn't report to Victoria. Small victories, Lila thought. Noah was impressed when she told him, look at you finding your backbone. It's probably stupid. I'll get in trouble eventually. Maybe, but you stood up for yourself. That's not stupid. He made it sound easy, but Lila knew better. Every act of defiance had consequences in the Monroe household. She just had to decide if those consequences were worth it. The answer came sooner than expected. Lila woke that night to voices arguing downstairs. Not unusual. Jonathan and Victoria had been having tense conversations lately, always in low tones that suggested things they didn't want Lila to hear. But tonight the voices were louder, angry. She crept to the top of the stairs, barefoot, silent on plush carpet, her prosthetic still off for the night. I'm telling you, something's wrong with that prosthetic. Jonathan's voice was strained. She winces every time she puts weight on it. The prosthetist called me Victoria. He said you've been making adjustments without authorization. He doesn't see the full picture. Victoria's clinical tone had an edge now. I'm correcting developmental issues before they become permanent. The short-term discomfort is necessary. She's 8 years old. She shouldn't be in pain. Pain teaches resilience. You want her to be weak, dependent, like Eleanor was. Silence. Then what did you say? Your wife was soft, Jonathan. Beautiful, yes, creative and free-spirited and all those lovely things, but she couldn't handle reality. The world broke her, and if you're not careful, it'll break your daughter too, unless someone teaches her to be harder. Eleanor wasn't weak. She killed herself with carelessness, driving too fast on wet roads, distracted by whatever whimsy caught her attention. That's not strength, that's self-destruction. She'd watched her sister squander everything Victoria believed she deserved. It wasn't rage that drove her, it was conviction, a clinical certainty that Eleanor's weakness had to be excised, even if the cure required destruction. Victoria's voice gentled, turning persuasive. I'm trying to save Lila from that fate. Don't you see? If she learns discipline now, if she understands that survival requires strength, she'll never be as vulnerable as her mother was. You don't get to rewrite Eleanor's death to justify. Jonathan stopped abruptly. Wait, how did you know she was driving too fast? The police report said they couldn't determine speed from the crash evidence. The pause stretched too long. I assumed, Victoria said finally. Given the road conditions, you weren't even in Atlanta when it happened. You were at a conference in Miami. Jonathan, you're exhausted. You're not thinking clearly. You told me you arrived the day after the accident, but you knew details about the crash scene that weren't in any report I saw. How? He wanted to ask more, but years of relying on her expertise dulled his instincts. The easiest thing was to believe her. Lila held her breath, pressing against the banister. Something dark was surfacing, something that had been hidden beneath perfectly maintained surfaces. I think you should go to bed. Victoria's voice had gone cold, clinical. This conversation is becoming unproductive. You're right. Jonathan sounded defeated. I'm probably imagining things. But Lila heard something in her father's voice, not conviction, but retreat. He suspected something but wasn't ready to confront it. Not yet. She made her way back to her room, mind racing. What had Victoria meant? And why did Jonathan sound afraid of his own questions? Sleep wouldn't come. Lila lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around her, thinking about her mother. Eleanor's death had always been presented as an accident, tragic, but simple. A rainy night, a sharp curve, a loss of control. These things happened. But what if they didn't just happen? What if someone made them happen? The thought was too big, too dark to hold on to. Lila pushed it away, but it left a residue of fear that wouldn't dissolve. At school the next day she found Noah waiting at their usual spot. She must have looked shaken because he immediately asked what was wrong. Can you keep a secret? The words escaped before she could reconsider. Yeah, obviously. So she told him about the argument, the strange details Victoria knew. her father's sudden questions. Noah listened without interrupting, his young face serious. "That's really messed up," he said finally. "You think your aunt had something to do with your mom's accident? I don't know. Maybe I'm making up patterns that aren't there. Or maybe you're seeing something everyone else missed." Noah chewed his lip, thinking, "My mom always says trust your gut. If something feels wrong, there's usually a reason. But what can I do? I'm 8. No one's going to believe me if I say I think Victoria killed my mother. Then you need proof. Real evidence, not just feeling." He paused. "When's Victoria at work?" "Afternoons. She has patient appointments from 1 to 8. And your dad?" "Office until dinner." Noah nodded slowly. "So if someone were to say look around the house for anything weird, Tuesday and Thursday afternoons would be good times." "I can't do that alone." "Who said alone?" He grinned, but it was different from his usual smile, sharper, determined. "I'm pretty good at finding things people want hidden. Comes from having a tiny apartment where nothing really has a place to hide. You'd help me." "Lila, someone's hurting you on purpose. Your leg, the pain medication, whatever's going on, that's not normal." "Yeah, I'll help." They planned carefully, with the seriousness of children who understand they're playing with adult consequences. Thursday afternoon, Lila would tell the driver she felt sick at school. Noah would slip away during PE, meeting her at the corner of Peachtree and West Paces Ferry. They'd have maybe 2 hours before Victoria's appointments ended. The Monday before their planned search, Martha Carter changed everything. Noah had mentioned his mother wanted to meet Lila, just to put a face to the name he kept mentioning. He made it sound casual, but Lila suspected Martha was concerned about her son's mysterious new friend from the wealthy school. They met at Piedmont Park during a Saturday morning when Jonathan thought Lila was at the library, a lie that was becoming easier with practice. Martha was a solid woman with tired eyes and capable hands, wearing scrubs from a night shift she'd just finished. She studied Lila with the kind of thorough attention that missed nothing. "So you're the girl my sons decided to rescue." Her voice held warmth but also assessment. "Noah's got a habit of adopting strays." "Mom," Noah protested. "It's a compliment, baby. You get it from me." Martha's smile softened her face. "But I need to understand what's going on." "Noah says you're having trouble with your prosthetic." Lila hesitated, unused to adult interest that felt genuine rather than clinical. "It hurts sometimes. Can I take a look?" Martha waited for Lila's nod before kneeling. Her hands were gentle as she examined the fit of the prosthetic through Lila's jeans. After a moment she sat back, frowning. "Who's your prosthetist?" "Dr. Richard Ellis at the Rehabilitation Center. Rick's good, one of the best." Martha's frown deepened. "But this fitting's all wrong. The socket alignment is off by at least a few degrees. That'd cause serious pain and tissue damage over time." "Who's been adjusting this?" "My aunt. She says Dr. Ellis doesn't understand my specific needs." "Your aunt's a doctor, right? Not an orthopedist or physical therapist." "Yeah, but she says." "I don't care what she says." Martha's voice went hard. "You don't mess with a kid's prosthetic unless you're qualified. This isn't just wrong, it's dangerous." She met Lila's eyes. "Honey, has she been doing other things? Adjusting medication, controlling your diet, anything like that?" Lila nodded slowly, feeling something unlock in her chest. "She says it's all to help me adapt." "That's not help. That's harm disguised as help, which is worse." Martha pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Rick. He needs to see this." "No." Lila's panic was immediate. "If Victoria finds out I told someone, she'll what?" Martha's voice gentled. "What will she do, baby?" The question opened a door Lila hadn't known was there. What would Victoria do? Nothing Lila could articulate exactly. No hitting, no overt cruelty, just the tightening of control, the removal of small freedoms, the implication that Lila was the problem, ungrateful and dramatic. "She'll say I'm being difficult. That I need more structure." Martha and Noah exchanged a look that spoke volumes. "Okay," Martha said finally, "we won't call yet, but I need you to know something. What's happening to you isn't normal. It's not help, and you deserve better." The words hit Lila like absolution she hadn't known she needed. "Then what do I do?" "You document everything. When your leg hurts, write it down. What medication you take, when you take it. Any time Victoria does something that feels wrong, you make a record." Martha squeezed her hand. And if things get worse, if you ever feel unsafe you call me, day or night. Deal? Lila agreed, though she couldn't imagine circumstances where she'd actually make that call. Victoria was family after all, her legal guardian, the person Jonathan trusted to care for his daughter. Who would believe a child's accusations against someone so respected? But the conversation with Martha had clarified something. Victoria's control wasn't normal, the pain wasn't necessary, and maybe, just maybe, Lila deserved to stop accepting both as inevitable. Thursday arrived cold and gray, threatening rain. Lila felt sick with nerves, which made faking illness easier. The school nurse called the driver, who collected Lila without question. She'd learned not to bother Victoria during work hours unless absolutely necessary. Noah met her at the corner as planned, having told his teacher he needed to use the bathroom and simply never returned. They'd both face consequences, but future problems felt less urgent than present truth-seeking. The Monroe estate loomed larger than usual as they approached. Lila used her key, expecting the alarm, but the system had been disarmed. Jonathan must have come home for lunch and forgotten to reset it. Small miracles. Inside, the house felt different with Noah present. Less museum, more just space. He looked around with undisguised curiosity, taking in the expensive neutrality of everything. Where would she keep important stuff? He asked. Her study maybe, or the guest bedroom she uses. They started with the study, which felt like invading a shrine. Victoria's domain was obsessively organized, files alphabetized, books arranged by subject and height, desk surface clear, except for a single framed degree. Everything in its place, nothing extraneous. Noah took the desk while Lila examined filing cabinets. Most contained patient files, carefully anonymized. Others held household records, receipts, insurance documents, mortgage papers. Nothing obviously sinister. What are we even looking for? Noah muttered, opening drawers carefully. I don't know. Anything about my mom's accident, I guess, or my medical treatment. In the bottom desk drawer, beneath folders of tax documents, Noah found a leather journal. He pulled it out, flipping pages. This is a diary or something. Want to look? Reading someone's private thoughts felt like crossing a line, but they'd already come this far. Lila took the journal, opening to a random page. The entry was dated 6 months before Eleanor's death. Jonathan remains infatuated despite Eleanor's increasing instability. She suspects something but lacks proof. The situation is becoming untenable. If she forces his hand, I'll have no choice but to accelerate contingencies. Lila's hands shook. What does that mean? What contingencies? Noah leaned over her shoulder, reading. Keep going, there's more. She flipped forward, finding entries that tracked Eleanor's movements, her friendships, her daily routines. Victoria had been watching her sister-in-law, with the attention of a scientist observing an experiment. Then 2 weeks before the accident, brake fluid is surprisingly simple to contaminate. Gradual deterioration would appear mechanical, inevitable. But timing is everything. One can't be hasty about these things. The room spun. Lila sat down hard, journal clutched to her chest. She killed her. Victoria killed my mother. We need to take this, Noah said urgently. Show it to your dad, the police, someone. No one will believe it. She'll say I'm lying, that I forged it or something. Then we photograph every page. Noah pulled out his phone, an older model his mom had gotten cheap, but it had a camera. We'll have backup. Multiple copies. They worked quickly, Noah photographing while Lila held pages flat. The journal was extensive, entries going back years, chronicling Victoria's obsession with her sister Eleanor and subsequent fixation on controlling Lila. Recent entries were particularly damning. The child needs more discipline. Proper alignment from an early age prevents weakness later. Jonathan questions my methods, but he's too burdened to intervene effectively. Soon he'll see results. A daughter who succeeds where her mother failed. A legacy I can be proud of. She's completely insane. Noah breathed. This is like villain-level crazy. A sound from downstairs froze them both. The front door opening, footsteps in the foyer, Victoria's voice calling out, Lila, the school said you came home sick. Where are you, darling? They stared at each other in panic. Victoria wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. Closet, Lila whispered,
pulling Noah toward the small coat closet in the corner. They squeezed inside among winter jackets and umbrellas, pulling the door nearly shut, leaving just a crack to see through. Victoria entered the study moments later. She stood in the doorway surveying the room with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. Had they left something out of place? A drawer slightly open, a chair moved. She crossed to the desk, running fingers along its surface. Then deliberately, she opened the bottom drawer, where the journal had been. Her stillness was more frightening than any reaction. Slowly she turned toward the filing cabinets, then to the closet. "Come out, Lila." Her voice was perfectly calm. "I know you're here. I can smell your perfume, that awful lavender body spray you think I don't notice you wearing." In the darkness of the closet, Lila felt Noah's hand find hers. His palm was sweaty but his grip was steady. "I'm disappointed," Victoria continued, moving closer. "After everything I've done for you, you repay me with betrayal, with theft of my private property. That journal is mine, Lila. You had no right." The closet door swung open. Victoria stood framed in light, face composed despite the fury in her eyes. Her gaze swept over both children, calculating. "And you brought a witness. How theatrical." She focused on Noah, the Carter boy. "Of course, I should have known you'd corrupt my niece with your influence. You killed her mother," Noah said, voice shaking but defiant. "That journal says so. You sabotaged the car." "Did it?" Victoria smiled, and the expression was terrible in its pleasantness. "What an active imagination. That journal is therapeutic writing, Mr. Carter. A private space where I process difficult emotions. Any doctor engages in such exercises. The thoughts I write aren't intentions, they're explorations of shadow feelings we all have but rarely acknowledge." "That's not what it sounded like," Lila managed. "Darling, you're 8 years old. You lack the sophistication to understand adult therapeutic processes." Victoria held out her hand. "Give me my journal. Then you and I will discuss appropriate consequences for breaking into my private things. As for you," she turned to Noah, "your involvement here constitutes trespassing. I could have you arrested." "Do it," Noah shot back. "I dare you. My mom works with a lawyer who does pro bono cases. He'd love to hear about all this." Victoria's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered behind her eyes. "How noble. A child playing hero. It's almost sweet, but you're out of your depth, both of you." "Jonathan needs to see this," Lila said, clutching the journal tighter. "He needs to know what you did. Your father will believe me. He always does. He's so tired, so grateful for my help with you." A hysterical child making wild accusations versus a respected doctor who's dedicated herself to her niece's welfare. Victoria shook her head with false sadness. "It won't even be a question." But the journal could have been written by anyone, could have been altered by a troubled child desperate for attention. There are so many explanations that don't require believing I'm a murderer. She stepped closer. "Give it back, Lila. Last chance." "No." The word hung in the air. Lila had never directly defied Victoria before. The silence stretched thin and dangerous. Then Victoria moved fast, faster than Lila expected. She grabbed for the journal, yanking it from Lila's hands with enough force to send the girl stumbling backward. Noah caught her, and they backed toward the door. "Run!" Noah shouted. They bolted from the study, Victoria's furious voice following them. "You can't leave this house. Where will you go?" "Down the stairs, through the foyer, out the front door." Lila's prosthetic protested with every step, pain shooting up her leg, but adrenaline carried her forward. Behind them, Victoria appeared at the doorway, phone already at her ear. "Yes, I need to report a runaway child and a trespasser." They ran 3 blocks before Lila's leg gave out. She collapsed against a bus shelter, gasping. Noah knelt beside her, pulling out his phone. "Calling my mom. She'll know what to do." Martha answered on the second ring. Noah explained in gasping bursts. "The journal, Victoria's confession, the chase." Martha's voice came through the speaker, urgent but calm. "Stay where you are. I'm calling Detective Ray Washington. He goes to our church. He's good people. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone until we get there. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." They huddled in the bus shelter while rain began to fall. Lila's leg throbbed, her heart raced, and she couldn't stop shaking. Noah kept one hand on her shoulder, solid and real.
"We got it," he said quietly. The photos, even if she destroys that journal, we have proof. She'll say I'm lying. She'll say I'm crazy. You're not crazy, and you're not alone anymore. 20 minutes later, Martha arrived with a tall black man in plainclothes, Detective Washington. He had kind eyes and a serious demeanor, listening without interrupting as they explained everything. He looked at the photos on Noah's phone, face growing grimmer with each swipe. "This is serious," he said finally. "These allegations, if true, constitute multiple crimes. But investigating a respected professional on a child's testimony won't be easy. We'll need more evidence." "I have medical records," Martha added. "Documentation of the prosthetic malfunction. That's tangible proof of harm, at minimum." "Good, that's a start." Washington looked at Lila. "Are you willing to make an official statement? It'll be recorded. A social worker will need to be present. Your father will be called. Are you ready for all that?" Lila thought about her mother, Eleanor, with her wild curls and paint-stained hands, laughing at something beyond the camera's frame. If Victoria had stolen that laughter from the world, if she'd killed Eleanor and then wrapped herself around Lila like a suffocating vine, someone needed to say so. "I'm ready." The police station smelled like coffee and industrial cleaner. Lila sat in a child-friendly interview room with soft chairs and muted colors meant to be calming. Detective Washington sat across from her, a video camera recording everything. Martha had insisted on staying, and Washington had agreed after confirming she wasn't family and had no legal conflict. Jonathan arrived 30 minutes into the interview, face gray with shock and confusion. "What's happening?" "Victoria called, said Lila ran away with some boy." He stopped, seeing his daughter's tear-stained face. "Princess, what's wrong?" "Mr. Monroe, please sit down." Washington gestured to a chair. "Your daughter has made some serious allegations regarding her aunt and your wife's death. We need you to hear what she has to say." So Lila told her father everything. About the pain in her prosthetic that Victoria dismissed, the medication that made her feel foggy, the constant surveillance disguised as care. About finding the journal with its terrible confessions, Victoria's obsessive tracking of Eleanor's movements, the admission about brake fluid. Jonathan listened in stunned silence, his face shifting through disbelief, horror, and something that looked like dawning recognition, as if pieces he'd been ignoring were suddenly forming a picture he couldn't unsee. "That's impossible," he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Victoria's been devoted to Lila. She gave up her own life to help us after Eleanor died. Why would she?" He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Washington pulled up the photographs on his laptop. "These were taken from a journal found in Miss Hale's study. We've already secured the original with a warrant. I need you to look at these entries, Mr. Monroe." Jonathan read in silence. With each entry he seemed to age, shoulders curving inward. When he finished he sat back, eyes closed. "I knew something was wrong," he whispered. "I knew, but I didn't want to see it. After Eleanor died, I was drowning. Victoria was so capable, so certain. I let her take over because it was easier than facing everything alone." He opened his eyes, focusing on Lila with devastating clarity. "God forgive me. I let her hurt you because I was too much of a coward to be a real father. Mr. Monroe, we'll need you to answer some questions about the time period before your wife's death." Washington's voice was gentle but firm. "Did you notice anything unusual about Miss Hale's behavior? Any interest in Eleanor's schedule, her car maintenance, anything like that?" Jonathan's face changed as memories surfaced. The week before the accident, Victoria was visiting. She asked to borrow Eleanor's car, said hers was making a strange noise and she had an early appointment. Eleanor let her take it. His voice dropped. "The next day Eleanor mentioned the brakes felt soft. We scheduled a mechanic appointment, but the accident happened first." The room went silent except for the hum of recording equipment. "Victoria had access to your wife's vehicle," Washington confirmed, making notes, "and the brake failure occurred shortly after. That establishes opportunity." He looked up. "Did your sister-in-law have any reason to wish your wife harm?" "They weren't close." Jonathan chose words carefully as if testing them. "Victoria always felt Eleanor wasn't suitable for me. She thought Eleanor was irresponsible, too artistic, not serious enough. After we married, Victoria's visits became less frequent, but when she did come, there was tension." "Did she ever express those feelings directly?" "Once at a family dinner, she'd been drinking and said something about how Eleanor would drag me down, that I'd regret choosing creativity over stability. Eleanor laughed it off, but Victoria wasn't laughing. Jonathan's hands clenched. I should have paid attention. I should have protected them both. The interview continued for another hour. Washington methodical in his questions, building a timeline of Victoria's access, opportunity, and potential motive. Through it all, Lila sat quietly, watching her father's face as he confronted the truth he'd been avoiding. Finally, Washington stood. I'm going to recommend immediate protective custody for Lila. Miss Hale shouldn't have any unsupervised contact until this investigation concludes. Mr. Monroe, I'll need you to sign some paperwork, whatever you need. Jonathan's voice was hollow. Whatever keeps my daughters safe. As they prepared to leave, Washington's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer, face darkening as he listened. When he returned, his expression was grim. That was patrol. They went to your residence to bring Miss Hale in for questioning. She's gone. Packed a bag and left. We've issued a bulo be on the lookout alert, but she's had a 2-hour head start. Jonathan stood abruptly. She ran. That's as good as a confession. It's certainly suspicious behavior. Washington agreed. But we still need to build a solid case. Flight suggests guilt, but it doesn't prove murder. What about Eleanor's car? Martha spoke up for the first time. The one from the accident. Where is it now? Likely salvaged years ago, but I'll check. Washington made another note. If any forensic evidence exists regarding brake tampering, it would be in the original accident report. Over the next few days, the Monroe house became a crime scene. Investigators combed through Victoria's study, seizing files and electronics. They found more journals, each one documenting years of obsessive observation. Victoria had tracked Eleanor's every move, her friendships, her marriage, with the detailed attention of someone planning something terrible. But the most damning evidence came from Victoria's computer. Deleted browser history revealed searches for undetectable brake line damage, how to puncture brake fluid reservoir, and accident investigation procedures. She'd researched extensively, learning how to create mechanical failure that would look natural. The prosecutor's office moved quickly. Victoria Hale was charged in absentia with first-degree murder, child endangerment, and assault. A nationwide warrant was issued for her arrest. Jonathan moved through those days like a ghost, organizing his daughter's care while wrestling with guilt so profound it seemed to physically diminish him. He rehired the previous housekeeper, arranged for Lila to see a trauma counselor, and contacted Dr. Ellis to properly fit her prosthetic. Why didn't I see it? He asked Martha one afternoon when she came to check on Lila. They sat in the kitchen while Lila slept upstairs, finally free of the medications Victoria had been forcing on her. How could I live in the same house and not see what was happening? Because she was good at hiding. Martha's voice held more gentleness than Jonathan probably deserved. People like Victoria, they know how to wear normal as a disguise. And you were grieving. Grief makes us vulnerable to anyone who offers to carry some of the weight. I should have been stronger. For Lila, for Eleanor's memory. Should have doesn't help anyone. What matters is what you do now. Martha fixed him with a steady look. That child upstairs needs a father who shows up. Not perfect, not guilt-ridden, just present. Can you do that? I don't know how. Then you learn. Same as the rest of us. She stood gathering her purse. My Noah had a deadbeat dad who left when times got hard. I had to learn how to be enough parent for two. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being there when your kid needs you, even when you're scared or unsure. After she left, Jonathan climbed the stairs to Lila's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling with that too old expression children get when innocence is stripped away prematurely. Can I come in? He asked from the doorway. Lila nodded, and Jonathan sat carefully on the edge of her bed. They hadn't really talked since the police station, not about anything that mattered. I'm sorry, he said finally. I know that's not enough, but I need you to hear it. I failed you. I failed your mother. I let someone dangerous into our home because I was too weak to do the hard work of being a parent alone. You didn't know. I should have. There were signs, your pain, your fear, the way you got quieter and smaller. I saw all of it and told myself, Victoria knew best. He reached for Lila's hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. I'll never forgive myself for that. But if you'll let me, I want to try to be the father you deserve. Starting now. What about Victoria? What if she comes back? She won't get near you.
I promise. The house has a new security system, and I've hired someone to make sure you're safe whenever I'm not here." He paused. "But more than that, I'm going to be here. Really here, not just physically present. I want to know what you're thinking, what you're afraid of, what makes you happy, all of it." Lila studied her father's face, searching for something. Whatever she found must have been enough, because she squeezed his hand back. "Can Noah still visit?" Jonathan smiled, the first real smile Lila had seen on his face in years. "Noah and his mother are welcome anytime. That boy probably saved your life. I owe him more than I can ever repay. He's my best friend." "Then he's family now. If that's okay with you." It was more than okay, it was everything. The trauma counselor was a woman named Dr. Sylvia James, who had a comfortable office that smelled like lavender and old books. Unlike Victoria's clinical approach, Dr. James let Lila lead their sessions, never pushing, always patient. "Healing isn't a straight line," she told Lila during their third meeting. "Some days you'll feel strong. Other days the fear will come back. Both are normal. Both are okay." The fear did come back, especially at night. Lila would wake gasping from nightmares where Victoria stood at the foot of her bed, smiling that terrible pleasant smile. Jonathan started sleeping in the room next to hers, door open, so she could call out if needed. "I'm scared I'm broken," Lila admitted one night after a particularly bad dream. Jonathan sat on her bed, stroking her hair like Eleanor used to. "You're not broken, you're hurt. There's a difference. Broken things can't heal, hurt things can." "How do you know?" "Because I'm hurt too. Your mother's death hurt me so badly I thought I'd never feel whole again. I let that hurt make me weak, let it stop me from being who you needed. But I'm trying now. We can heal together." The prosthetic fitting with Dr. Ellis revealed the extent of Victoria's sabotage. The socket had been deliberately misaligned, causing tissue damage and chronic pain. Ellis was horrified, immediately filing a formal complaint with the medical board and providing detailed documentation for the criminal case. "This is going to take time to fix," he warned, examining Lila's residual limb. "The tissue needs to heal before we can properly fit a new socket. Several months probably." "Will it hurt?" "Some, but nothing like what you've been experiencing, and I promise we'll do this right. No shortcuts, no compromises. Your comfort is the priority." Noah visited almost daily, bringing homework when Lila missed school and staying for dinner with increasing frequency. Martha would arrive after her hospital shifts, and the four of them, Jonathan, Lila, Noah and Martha, would sit around the kitchen table like a makeshift family assembled from broken pieces. "You know what I never understood," Martha said one evening, helping Jonathan with dishes while the kids did homework. "How someone can look at a hurting child and see an opportunity for control instead of a chance to help heal." "She was sick," Jonathan said quietly. "I've been reading about personality disorders." Victoria showed signs of antisocial personality disorder, pathological narcissism. She genuinely believed she was helping, making Lila stronger. "Mental illness explains behavior. It doesn't excuse it." "No, it doesn't." He set down a dish, turning to face Martha. "I need to ask you something. Why are you doing this? Helping us, I mean. You barely knew Lila before all this happened." Martha considered the question seriously. "My son cares about your daughter. That's reason enough. But also," she paused, "I've spent my whole life cleaning up after people who have more money than sense, watching the wealthy treat folks like me, as if we're invisible. You could have dismissed Noah as the poor kid trying to social climb, the way Victoria did. You didn't. You treated him with respect, made him welcome. That means something. He saved Lila's life. And you're letting her keep him in it. Plenty of rich folks would have said thank you and shown us the door once the crisis passed." She met his eyes directly. "You're not perfect, Jonathan, but you're trying. That's more than most." 6 weeks after Victoria's disappearance, Detective Washington called with news. "We found her, living under an assumed name in a small town in Oregon. Local police are bringing her in now. She'll be extradited back to Georgia to face charges." The news should have brought relief. Instead, Lila felt a confusing mix of emotions: fear that Victoria would somehow talk her way free, anger at the months of pain inflicted, and something she didn't want to acknowledge, a twisted sort of grief for the aunt who'd claimed to love her. "She hurt you," Dr. James said when Lila tried to explain. But she was also the person who was supposed to care for you after your mother died. You were supposed to be able to trust her. Grieving that betrayal is natural. You can be angry and sad at the same time. But she killed my mom. I shouldn't feel anything but hate. Emotions don't follow rules. They just are. Dr. James leaned forward. The fact that you can hold complicated feelings about someone who hurt you doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Victoria saw the world in black and white, strong or weak, perfect or worthless. You're learning to live in the gray spaces where real people exist. That's growth. The trial was set for early spring. The prosecutor explained that given Victoria's flight and the evidence strength, a conviction was likely, but Lila would need to testify. I know it's scary, the prosecutor said. A sharp-faced woman named Angela Ross, who reminded Lila of Martha in her no-nonsense competence. But your voice matters. The jury needs to hear what she did to you, how it felt. Can you do that? Lila looked at her father, at Noah sitting beside her, at Martha standing protectively nearby, her family not by blood but by choice. I can do it. The courtroom was smaller than Lila expected from television. All wood paneling and formal order. She sat between Jonathan and the victim advocate, a gentle woman named Patricia who explained each stage of the process. Victoria entered in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed, looking older than Lila remembered. Their eyes met across the room, and something flickered in Victoria's expression. Not remorse, Lila thought, but calculation. She was already planning her defense, figuring angles. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Prosecutors presented the journals, the computer searches, testimony from the original accident investigator who confirmed the brake lines showed signs of tampering missed in the initial review. They called Dr. Ellis, who explained the deliberate prosthetic misalignment in clinical detail that made jurors visibly uncomfortable. Martha testified about the medical neglect she'd witnessed. That child was in constant pain, she said firmly, and the person responsible was the one claiming to care for her. Then it was Lila's turn. She walked to the witness stand on her properly fitted prosthetic, which no longer hurt with every step. Patricia had coached her. Answer only what's asked. Speak clearly. Tell the truth. Simple rules for an impossible task. Angela Ross approached with a kind smile. Hi Lila. Can you tell the jury who Victoria Hale is to you? My aunt, my mother's sister. She moved in after my mom died. And how did she treat you? Lila glanced at Victoria, who watched with that clinical interest she'd always shown. At first she seemed nice. She said she'd take care of me and my dad. But then she started making rules. Lots of rules. What kind of rules? How I should sit, how I should talk, what I should eat. She said my mom had been too soft with me, that I needed discipline. Lila's voice steadied as she continued. She took over my medical care, changed how my prosthetic leg fit, even though it hurt. When I told her it hurt, she said that was weakness leaving my body. Did she ever mention your mother? Sometimes, she'd say my mom wasn't strong enough for the world, that she made bad choices because she was too emotional. Lila paused. She said I was like my mom, and she had to fix that before it was too late. Too late for what? I don't know, but the way she said it scared me. The defense attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, tried to shake her testimony on cross-examination. Isn't it true that Miss Hale was simply trying to help you adjust to your disability? No, she was hurting me on purpose. You're 8 years old. How can you possibly know her intentions? Lila met his eyes directly, because when something hurts, and you tell someone, and they make it hurt more, that's on purpose. The answer resonated through the courtroom. Even the defense attorney seemed momentarily at a loss. Victoria took the stand in her own defense, composed and articulate. She wept convincingly when discussing Eleanor's death, presenting herself as a devoted sister struggling with complicated grief. The journals were therapeutic exercises, she claimed. The computer searches were research for a paper on accident investigation psychology. The prosthetic issues were simply a medical difference of opinion. I loved that child, she said, looking directly at the jury. Everything I did was to help her become strong, independent. If I made mistakes in methodology, they were mistakes of love, not malice. But Angela Ross was ready. On cross-examination she pulled out a journal entry from 3 months after Lila's accident. The child cries too much. Weakness inherited from Eleanor must be corrected before it sets permanently. That's therapeutic writing, Ross asked, a candid expression of frustration. Anyone who's cared for a disabled child understands. This isn't about caring for a disabled child. This is about you calling a 4-year-old weak for crying after losing her mother and her leg. Ross's voice cut like steel. This is about you deciding a child needed to be broken down and rebuilt in your image. Victoria's composure slipped. You don't understand. That girl needed, what she needed was love, safety, medical care from qualified professionals. What you gave her was torture dressed up as help. Ross held up another journal. You documented it yourself. Every time she showed pain you called it weakness. Every time she asked for her mother, you called it dwelling on the past. You weren't helping her heal. You were punishing her for surviving when her mother didn't. The accusation hung in suddenly silent air. Victoria's face went blank, the mask slipping to reveal something cold beneath. Eleanor was always weak, she said quietly. Even as children she was the pretty one, the artistic one, the one everyone loved. I was the smart one, the capable one. But people didn't love me the way they loved her. When Jonathan chose her I knew it was a mistake. She'd destroy him eventually, drag him down with her foolishness. So you killed her. I freed him. Victoria spoke as if explaining something obvious, and I tried to save Lila from her mother's fate. If she just cooperated, just learned to be strong. You tortured a child because you were jealous of her mother. Ross's voice held contempt, and when your brother-in-law dared to question your methods, you were prepared to lose him too, rather than admit you were wrong. Isn't that the truth? Victoria didn't answer. She didn't need to. The confession was written on her face. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing the judge looked at Victoria with something like pity. You had every advantage, education, resources, professional standing. You used those advantages to commit murder and torture a child who'd already lost her mother. I'm sentencing you to life in prison without possibility of parole for the murder of Eleanor Monroe, plus 25 years for child endangerment and assault. You'll never hurt another child again. Victoria's face remained blank as they led her away. She didn't look at Lila, didn't acknowledge Jonathan. She simply left, as if this were merely another appointment that hadn't gone as planned. Spring came to Atlanta with a vengeance, sudden warmth, flowering dogwoods, the kind of rebirth that felt almost aggressive in its optimism. The Monroe house had been professionally cleaned, Victoria's presence systematically erased. Jonathan had hired an interior designer, someone who worked with Lila to choose new colors, new furniture, remaking the space into something warmer. Eleanor's paintings came out of storage. They hung throughout the house now, bold abstracts, gentle landscapes, portraits of a laughing girl who'd grown into Lila. Jonathan had them professionally framed, treating his late wife's work with the respect it deserved. Your mother was talented, he told Lila as they hung the largest painting in the living room. A swirling sunset that seemed to dance with light. I'd forgotten that. Or maybe I forced myself to forget because remembering hurt too much. But she deserves to be remembered. You deserve to know who she really was. They started going through boxes of Eleanor's belongings that had been packed away. Letters to infant Lila, describing hopes and dreams for her daughter's future. Sketchbooks full of drawings, some finished, some barely started, all showing a mind that saw the world in colors and possibilities. One letter in particular made them both cry. Eleanor had written it on Lila's first birthday to be opened when Lila turned 8. My darling girl, if you're reading this, I'm probably not there with you. That breaks my heart more than I can say, but I need you to know some things. You are loved, absolutely, completely, without condition. Whatever happens in your life, whoever you become, that love is the one certainty. Be brave, be kind, be yourself, even when the world tries to make you smaller. And remember, perfection is boring. It's our flaws, our quirks, our weird little habits that make us interesting. Don't ever let anyone convince you that you need to be anything other than exactly who you are. You're already enough. Love, Mom.
She knew, Lila whispered. Somehow she knew Victoria would try to change me. Your mother understood her sister better than I did. Jonathan's voice was thick with emotion. She tried to tell me once that Victoria's love was conditional, that she only valued people who met her standards. I dismissed it as sibling rivalry. If I'd listened, you didn't know Victoria would kill her. No one did. No. But I should have protected you better afterward. I should have seen what was happening. They sat together in comfortable silence, grief and love tangled together in a way that felt sustainable now. Not healed perhaps, but healing. The Monroe Carter Foundation launched in early summer. Jonathan and Martha co-founded it, dedicated to helping children with disabilities access proper medical care and supporting families dealing with trauma. They established a scholarship program in Eleanor's name for young artists and a grant system for single parents needing child care assistance. Your mother believed in helping people, Jonathan explained to Lila at the opening ceremony. Not fixing them, helping them. There's a difference. The foundation will be about giving people what they need to thrive, not forcing them into someone else's idea of perfection. Lila and Noah cut the ribbon together, cameras flashing. At 7 and 8 now they'd become local symbols of resilience. The rich girl and the scholarship kid who'd exposed a murderer and survived to tell about it. But they were still just children, and what they valued most was simpler than symbolism. Want to get ice cream after this? Noah whispered during the speeches. Obviously. Think we can convince them to leave early? Not a chance. We're stuck until the adults stop congratulating themselves. They grinned at each other, and Lila felt a rush of gratitude for this boy who'd stood up for her when no one else would, who'd risked trouble to help her find truth, who'd stayed even when things got scary. Thanks, she said quietly. For what? Everything. Being my friend when I didn't know how to be one back. Helping me be brave. Noah bumped his shoulder against hers. You were always brave. I just helped you remember. Dr. Ellis presented Lila with her new prosthetic that fall, a custom design that actually fit properly, painted with colors she'd chosen herself. Bright turquoise with silver stars, nothing subtle about it. I thought you'd want something that blended in, Ellis admitted. Most kids do. I did want that. When Victoria was choosing, Lila ran her hand over the vibrant surface. But she's gone now. I don't have to hide anymore. Learning to walk on the properly fitted prosthetic felt like learning to walk all over again. But this time there was no pain, no correction, just patient encouragement from physical therapists who actually cared about her comfort. Martha often came to appointments, consulting with Ellis and the PT team. Your body went through trauma, she explained to Lila. Physical trauma from the accident and the bad prosthetic, but also trauma from the fear and control. Healing means addressing all of it, not just the leg. Does it ever stop hurting? The physical pain, mostly, yes. The emotional stuff. Martha's smile was rueful. That takes longer, but it does get easier, I promise. Jonathan had started therapy himself, working through grief and guilt with a psychologist who specialized in trauma. Some evenings Lila would hear him crying in his study, and she'd stand outside the door, unsure whether to enter or give him privacy. One night she knocked. Dad, are you okay? He looked up, eyes red. Not really, but I will be. He opened his arms and she climbed into his lap like she used to when she was smaller. Sometimes I think about all the time I wasted being numb instead of being your father. All the moments I can't get back. But we have now. Dr. James says that's what matters. What we do with the time we have, not the time we lost. Your therapist is a smart woman. He kissed the top of her head. How'd I get such a wise kid? Maybe from Mom. The letter said she was pretty smart. She was, and she'd be so proud of you. His voice caught. I'm proud of you. For surviving, for speaking up, for being strong enough to heal. I'm not that strong. Lila, you survived 2 years of torture and found the courage to stop it. You're one of the strongest people I know. 3rd grade started at a new school, a smaller private academy that Jonathan chose specifically for its inclusive environment and strong counseling program. No more Brookstone and its culture of casual cruelty. Noah transferred too, his tuition covered by the foundation Jonathan had established. They sat together at lunch, did homework at each other's houses, and slowly built the kind of normal childhood that had been stolen from them. Lila made other friends too, kids who saw her prosthetic and shrugged, more interested in whether she was good at Foursquare or preferred reading to gym. The casual acceptance was strange at first, almost uncomfortable. She kept waiting for judgment that never came. Not everyone's like Victoria. Noah reminded her. Most people are basically okay if you give them the chance. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise, you just weren't listening. She threw a grape at him, and they dissolved into the kind of silly laughter that felt like healing in action. Lila's 9th birthday fell on a Saturday in October, 2 years after Victoria's conviction. Jonathan had planned a party, nothing extravagant, just close friends and family. Martha and Noah, of course. Dr. James, who'd become more than just a therapist. Patricia, the victim advocate. A handful of school friends who valued kindness over status. But before the party, Jonathan had a different plan. I want to take you somewhere, he said that morning. If you're ready. They drove to Oakland Cemetery, one of Atlanta's oldest burial grounds. Jonathan led her through winding paths until they reached a simple grave marker. Eleanor Rose Monroe, beloved wife and mother, her art will bloom eternal. Lila had never visited before. Victoria had discouraged it, calling it dwelling on loss. Jonathan had complied, too broken himself to argue. I should have brought you sooner, he said, kneeling beside the grave. Your mother would have wanted you to know where she rests. Lila touched the marker, tracing letters with her fingers. Can I talk to her? Any time you want. So Lila sat on the grass, Jonathan beside her, and talked. She told Eleanor about school, about Noah and Martha, about learning to walk without pain. She described the trial, Victoria's conviction. The justice Eleanor never got to see. I miss you, she finished quietly. I wish you were here, but I'm okay now. Dad and I are okay. The wind rustled through oak trees, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. In that moment, Lila felt something shift, not closure exactly, but acceptance. Her mother was gone. Victoria had stolen her, but Eleanor's love remained, woven into the fabric of who Lila was becoming. Jonathan placed flowers on the grave, wildflowers, chaotic and bright, the kind Eleanor would have loved. I failed her, he said. I let her killer move into our home, care for our daughter. How do I live with that? By being better now, Lila answered, echoing Martha's words. That's what Mom would want, not for us to stay broken, but to heal. They sat together until the sun climbed higher, warming the October chill. Finally Jonathan stood, offering his hand. Come on, you have a party waiting. The celebration was simple but joyful. Martha had baked a chocolate cake that listed slightly to one side but tasted perfect. Noah gave Lila a book she'd been wanting, with a note inside, to my best friend. Thanks for being brave enough to save yourself, so I didn't have to do it alone. Dr. James presented a journal. For writing your own story, she explained. Not the story others tell about you, but the one you choose to tell yourself. That night, after everyone left, Lila opened the journal to the first blank page. She sat for a long time, pen hovering, thinking about what story she wanted to tell. Finally she wrote, My name is Lila Monroe. I lost my mother when I was 4, my leg in the same accident. Someone who was supposed to love me tried to break me, but I survived. This is my story, not of what was done to me, but of what I chose to do next. She filled 3 pages that night, words pouring out in a rush she couldn't contain. Not perfect prose, she was 9, after all, but honest. Her story in her own voice, claiming ownership of a narrative that had been written onto her for too long. When she finally closed the journal, exhausted but lighter somehow, she found Jonathan standing in her doorway. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. Too much cake, too many thoughts, he smiled, entering, when she gestured permission. I've been thinking about something, Dr. Reynolds said in therapy, my therapist. She asked what I wanted for you, as a father, what kind of person I hoped you'd become. What did you say? I didn't have an answer at first. Then I realized I don't want you to become anything specific, I just want you to become yourself. Whoever that turns out to be. He sat on the edge of her bed. Victoria tried to mold you into her image. I enabled that by not paying attention. I won't make that mistake again. I know, do you? His eyes were serious. Because I need you to understand something. You don't owe me anything. Not gratitude for finally being a decent father, not forgiveness for the years I wasn't. If you're angry, be angry. If you need space, take it. Your feelings, whatever they are valid. Lila considered this carefully. I was angry. Sometimes I still am. But mostly I'm just sad for all the time we lost. We can't get that back, but we can have now. That's enough. You're wise beyond your years. Noah says that too. I think it just means I had to grow up too fast. Jonathan's face clouded with familiar guilt. I'm sorry, I know. You've said it 100 times. I believe you. She reached for his hand. But Dad, at some point, you have to forgive yourself. Carrying guilt forever doesn't change what happened. It just means Victoria wins. She gets to hurt us even from prison. The observation was so mature, so clear-sighted, that Jonathan felt his throat tighten. His daughter already understanding what he was still learning. When did you get so smart? I have good teachers. Dr. James, Martha, Noah. You when you're not being sad about the past. She squeezed his hand. We're okay, Dad. Really, we're going to be okay. He believed her. The years that followed brought their own challenges. Lila had nightmares sometimes, especially around the anniversary of Eleanor's death. She struggled with trust issues, hypervigilance, the lingering effects of prolonged psychological abuse. Dr. James warned them that trauma didn't heal on a schedule. It emerged in layers, each one requiring attention and care. But there were victories too. Small ones at first. A week without nightmares, a new friend made easily, a compliment accepted without suspicion. Then larger ones. Lila's writing improved, essays pouring from her pen with startling emotional honesty. She joined the school art club, discovering she'd inherited Eleanor's eye for color and composition. By the time she was 11, Lila had become something of an activist. She spoke at foundation events, sharing her story to help other children trapped in abusive situations recognize what was happening to them. Her youth gave her credibility. If she could survive and thrive, maybe they could too. You don't have to do this, Jonathan always reminded her before presentations. No one expects you to make your trauma public. I know, but if talking about it helps even one kid get out sooner, it's worth it. Noah remained her constant companion, the friendship that had started in a library, maturing into something deeper than circumstance. They understood each other in ways that transcended explanation, two kids who'd seen darkness early and chosen to find light together. Martha and Jonathan grew closer too, though they both insisted they were just friends, co-parents in spirit, if not legal definition. Noah spent so much time at the Monroe house that he had his own room, his own space in the family dynamic that had reshaped itself around need and affection rather than blood. You know they're going to end up together, right? Noah said one afternoon, when they were 12 and 13, watching their parents laugh over something in the kitchen. Probably, Lila agreed. Would that bother you? Are you kidding? Your dad's loaded. Think of the college fund. She shoved him, and they wrestled briefly, the easy physicality of siblings who'd chosen each other. Seriously though, Noah said when they'd settled. Would you be okay with it, if they did become a thing? Lila thought about it honestly. Yeah, my mom's gone. Victoria tried to replace her, but that was about control, not love. If Dad finds happiness again, really finds it, Mom would want that. I want that. Cool, because my mom deserves someone who treats her right, and your dad's finally figured out how to be a decent human. How generous of you to notice. They grinned at each other, partners in the family they were building from pieces of brokenness. The one shadow that remained was Victoria herself. She was permitted limited communication from prison, 1 letter per month, subject to monitoring. At first Lila refused to read them. The letters piled up in Jonathan's study, unopened. But as Lila grew older, curiosity eventually won. At 13, she asked to see them. Are you sure? Dr. James asked during their session. You don't owe her your attention. I know, but maybe I need to see what she says, to understand, if that's possible. So she read them, all 27 letters, written over 3 years. They were disturbing in their consistency. Victoria maintained that she'd been trying to help, that Lila had misunderstood her intentions, that someday she'd realize everything had been for her own good. No remorse, no genuine apology, just justification wrapped in maternal language. The final letter, written just weeks before, ended, "You'll understand when you're older. The world requires strength. I gave you that gift, even if you can't see it yet. Someday you'll thank me." Lila set down the letter, feeling nothing but pity. She really believes it. She's not pretending. She genuinely thinks she was helping. Does that change how you feel? Dr. James asked. No. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't make it okay. It just makes it sad. Lila looked at her therapist.
I don't forgive her. I don't even want to. But I think I'm done being angry. That takes too much energy. What do you want instead? To focus on the people who actually love me, to live well. That's the best revenge, right? Being happy despite everything she did. Dr. James smiled. That's not revenge, that's healing. And yes, it's the best possible outcome. Lila never wrote back. She instructed the prison to stop forwarding Victoria's letters. There was nothing more to say, no closure to be found in continuing engagement. Victoria would spend her life in prison, convinced of her own righteousness. Lila would spend hers building something better. Lila turned 15 in October. The girl who'd once hidden in libraries and minimized her presence now moved through the world with quiet confidence. She wore her prosthetic openly, sometimes decorated with designs she painted herself, flowers one month, stars the next, abstract patterns that reflected whatever mood she was in. She'd grown tall, with Eleanor's curly hair and Jonathan's serious eyes. She wrote constantly, essays, stories, poetry, processing her experiences through words. The school literary magazine featured her work regularly, pieces that made teachers uncomfortable with their raw honesty. One essay in particular, titled The Weight of Perfection, went semi-viral after a teacher submitted it to a national contest. Lila wrote about growing up under Victoria's control, about learning that perfection was a weapon, about the freedom found in accepting imperfection. The essay ended, "They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but that's not quite right. What doesn't kill you just doesn't kill you. You decide what to do with the survival. I chose to let it make me kinder. That I think would disappoint my abuser more than any revenge ever could." The essay won first place. The prize included a scholarship fund and an invitation to speak at a youth empowerment conference in Washington. Lila accepted, with Jonathan and Noah accompanying her. Standing on that stage, looking at hundreds of young faces, Lila felt Eleanor's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. This was what her mother had wanted, for Lila to be brave, kind herself. Not perfect, just real. "My story could have ended differently," she told the audience. "I could have stayed silent, could have believed I deserved the pain, could have grown up thinking love was supposed to hurt." She paused, "But I had people who showed me different. A boy who stood up for me when he didn't have to. His mother who recognized harm and refused to look away. My father who finally woke up and chose to be present. A therapist who taught me that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating the pain into who you become." In the audience, Jonathan wiped his eyes. Noah gave him a tissue, rolling his eyes affectionately. "Dude, you cry every time she speaks. She's my daughter, I'm allowed." Fair point. After the conference, they walked the National Mall, three people connected by trauma and choice. Washington was beautiful in autumn, monuments gleaming under clear skies. "I've been thinking about something," Lila said as they approached the Lincoln Memorial. "The foundation needs a youth advisory board, kids who've been through the system, who can speak to what actually helps versus what adults think should help." "That's a great idea," Jonathan agreed. "You want to lead it, maybe, if I can balance it with school and writing." She glanced at Noah. "You in?" "Obviously, someone needs to keep you from taking yourself too seriously." They climbed the memorial steps, standing before Lincoln's massive figure. Lila read the Gettysburg Address engraved on the wall, struck by the phrase that government of the people by the people for the people shall not perish from the earth. "We should add that to the foundation mission," she said. "Support of the people by the people for the people. Not experts deciding what's best, but actual people helping each other." "I love it," Martha said, appearing behind them with coffee she'd gone to find. "Make it official at the next board meeting." They spent the afternoon touring museums, being tourists without agenda. It felt normal, blessedly simple, just a family, unconventional, assembled from broken pieces, but real. That evening, in their hotel room, Jonathan knocked on Lila's door. She was journaling, as she did most nights now. "Come in." He entered carrying a wrapped box. "I have something for you." Was going to wait until we got home, but this seems like the right moment. Lila set aside her journal, curious. She opened the box carefully, finding a leather portfolio inside. She unzipped it, breath-catching. Eleanor's paintings, not the large canvases hanging in the house, but smaller pieces, watercolors, sketches, studies done quickly, intimate glimpses into how Eleanor saw the world. These were in storage, Jonathan explained. I was going through boxes last month and found them. Your mother did these the year before she died. Look at the dates. Lila checked. Each piece was dated and titled. She worked through them chronologically, watching Eleanor's artistic journey. Then she reached the final painting. It showed a girl, standing in a field of wildflowers. She had one leg and wore a bright red prosthetic, but she wasn't sad or diminished. She was dancing, arms spread wide, face turned toward the sun. The painting was titled Lila, As She Will Be, My Brave Beautiful Girl. Lila stared, tears streaming. She drew me, before the accident, before any of this happened. Look at the date, 6 months before Eleanor's death. A year before the accident that took Lila's leg. I don't understand. How did she know? Jonathan's voice was thick. I think she didn't, not specifically, but she knew you'd face challenges. Every parent knows that. And she wanted you to see yourself as she saw you, whole, joyful, dancing despite whatever life threw at you. She saw me being okay. She saw you being more than okay. She saw you being magnificent. Lila held the painting carefully. This message from a mother who'd loved her before and beyond death. Eleanor hadn't been weak, despite what Victoria claimed. She'd been strong enough to love without condition, to see her daughter's future happiness even when she wouldn't be there to witness it. Thank you, Lila whispered, for keeping these, for giving them to me now. Your mother's art is yours, all of it. When you're older, when you have your own place, you can decide what to do with it. Keep it private, exhibit it, whatever feels right, but it's yours, her legacy to you. That night, unable to sleep, Lila opened her journal to a fresh page. She wrote, Dear Mom, I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. Perfection isn't the goal. Perfection is boring, sterile, lifeless. You wanted me to be messy and real and fully alive. Victoria tried to take that away, but she couldn't, not completely, because you planted something in me, a seed of wildness, of art, of joy, that nothing can kill. I'm dancing now, Mom. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but I'm dancing. And I know you're watching somewhere, proud of the girl I'm becoming. Not despite my scars, but including them. I love you, I forgive you for leaving, even though you didn't want to. And I promise to live big enough for both of us. Love always, Lila. She closed the journal, feeling something settle in her chest. Peace maybe, or acceptance. The understanding that she carried her mother forward, not by being perfect, but by being authentically herself. The next morning, their last in Washington, they visited the National Cathedral. None of them were particularly religious, but the space felt sacred, appropriate. Lila lit a candle for Eleanor in the small side chapel. She stood there for a long moment, head bowed, saying goodbye and hello simultaneously. Goodbye to the mother she'd known for too brief a time. Hello to the legacy she'd carry forward. Noah stood beside her, lighting his own candle. For everyone we've lost, he said quietly, and everyone we've found. They flew home that afternoon, exhausted but content. Atlanta welcomed them with autumn warmth and the familiar traffic of home. At the baggage claim, Martha was waiting with a sign that read, Monroe Carter Delegation. We're a delegation now. Jonathan asked, hugging her, You're something. I'm still figuring out what. She smiled, and there was affection in it that transcended friendship. Noah caught Lila's eye, waggling his eyebrows suggestively. She fought a grin. The months that followed brought their own changes. The Youth Advisory Board launched with 12 members, kids who'd survived abuse, neglect, disability discrimination. They met monthly, shaping foundation programs to actually serve children, rather than theoretical ideals. Lila also started a blog, Perfectly Imperfect, where she wrote about disability, trauma recovery, and teenage life. It gained a following quickly, other young people finding solidarity in her honest approach. She didn't sugarcoat the hard parts, but also refused to make her story only about suffering. Life after trauma isn't all therapy and tears, she wrote in one popular post. It's also really good pizza with your best friend, and laughing until your stomach hurts at stupid videos. It's getting an A on an essay and being proud of yourself. It's regular, boring, beautiful normalcy. Don't let anyone convince you that healing means being constantly focused on your wounds. Healing means building a life worth living, where trauma is part of your history, but not the whole story. Jonathan and Martha officially started dating in the spring, though everyone treated it as the most anticlimactic announcement ever. Finally, Noah said, "We've been calling you guys a couple for months. We wanted to be sure," Martha explained. "You're sure of each other, you were just scared of change." Lila hugged them both. "I'm happy for you, for all of us." The relationship brought additional stability to their makeshift family. Martha gradually moved into the Monroe house, bringing her practical warmth to spaces that had once felt sterile. She hung family photos, left books scattered on tables, insisted on cooking traditional Southern meals that filled the house with welcoming smells. This place needed life, she told Jonathan. Not perfection, life. He couldn't agree more. Lila's birthday came with an unexpected gift. Dr. Ellis had been working with a prosthetic company on new technology, microprocessor-controlled knees that adjusted to walking surfaces in real time. Lila was selected as a test user. "This is cutting-edge stuff," Ellis explained during the fitting. "But given your advocacy work, the company wants to partner with you. If you're comfortable, you'd be a kind of ambassador, testing equipment, providing feedback, helping develop solutions for young amputees." Lila looked at the sleek device, so different from the bulky prosthetic Victoria had forced on her years ago. This one was designed with her input, customized to her body and needs. It represented everything Victoria's approach hadn't: collaboration, respect, genuine care. "I'm in," she said. The new prosthetic changed her mobility significantly. She could walk faster, navigate uneven ground more easily, even run without discomfort. The freedom was exhilarating. Noah insisted they celebrate properly. "Race you to the end of the block. You'll lose, probably. But I'll lose to my best friend being awesome, so that's still a win." They raced, Lila winning easily, both of them breathless and laughing at the finish. In that moment, Lila felt purely, perfectly happy, not despite her prosthetic, but simply existing alongside it, a tool that enabled her life without defining it. That summer, the foundation opened a residential program for children escaping abuse. The Eleanor Monroe House, they called it, a safe space where kids could heal without judgment. Bright, artistic, full of light, everything Eleanor had been. At the opening ceremony, Lila unveiled a mural she'd painted on the main hallway wall. It showed wildflowers growing through concrete, vibrant and unstoppable. "My mother painted flowers a lot," she told the assembled crowd. "I used to think it was just because they're pretty. But flowers are also survivors. They grow through cracks in sidewalks, thrive in terrible soil, bloom despite everything trying to stop them." She gestured to the mural. "That's what we want this house to be. A place where kids can grow despite the concrete trying to contain them. Where survival becomes thriving." The speech was brief but landed perfectly. As people toured the facility, complimenting the bright rooms and thoughtful design, Lila slipped away to the garden area. She needed a moment alone with her thoughts. She found herself thinking about Victoria, locked away in prison. Did she ever realize what she'd lost? The chance to genuinely love someone, to support rather than control, to help rather than harm. Probably not. Victoria was too convinced of her own righteousness. But that was Victoria's loss, not Lila's. Lila had mourned the aunt she'd needed Victoria to be. She'd grieved the wasted years, the unnecessary pain. Now she was done mourning. Victoria had taken enough of her life. She wouldn't have another moment. "There you are." Noah appeared beside her. "People are looking for the guest of honor. Just needed a minute." "Yeah, I figured." He sat on the garden bench, patting the spot beside him. "You okay?" "Better than okay. I'm good, Noah. Really genuinely good. Good because I'm not carrying you through another crisis. I've hit my quota." She laughed, shoving him affectionately. "Liar, you'd be right there no matter what." "True, but don't test it." His smile softened. "I'm proud of you, for everything you've become despite everything that happened. We became it together. You know that, right? None of this works without you. I know, we're a team. Always have been." They sat in comfortable silence, watching butterflies drift through the garden. Two kids who'd saved each other without quite meaning to, who'd built a friendship that transcended trauma and transformed it into something beautiful. Eventually they returned to the ceremony, to the life they'd chosen together. And if sometimes Lila still had bad days, still struggled with trust or control issues, still woke from nightmares where Victoria's face loomed over her, well, that was okay. Healing wasn't linear. It wasn't a destination reached and done. It was a practice, daily and imperfect. And Lila was getting better at it all the time.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.